Hi, I'm Yvette Jones, and this is Talk Fulton. On today's show, 10 years after the courthouse shooting, what changes has the Sheriff's Office made to keep the public safe? And how is Deputy Cynthia Hall doing now? And what does it take to get 2,500 inmates out of the Fulton County Jail in an emergency? We'll show you what happened when deputies last tried. Talk Fulton starts right now. We're talking today about the lessons learned from the tragedy that forever changed how inmates are handled when taken to the Fulton County Courthouse. This year marks the 10th anniversary of the courthouse shooting, when a Fulton County judge, sheriff's deputy, and court reporter were killed while on the job by then inmate Brian Nichols. Today, their photos hang in the courthouse, a permanent reminder of how they paid the ultimate sacrifice in the name of seeking justice. Lieutenant Colonel Maria McKee now oversees courthouse security for the Fulton County Sheriff's Office. Thank you so much for being with us today.
And thank you for having me here.
Sure. Well, March 11th, 2015 actually marked the anniversary date. It's hard to believe that it was 10 years ago. Many improvements have been made as a result of that day and just in general. What is the most significant change you would say your office has made after 3/11?
Well, I can talk about two changes that comes to mind that the Sheriff's Office made almost immediately following the events of 3/11, and one was to discontinue escorting inmates from the Justice Center Tower across the bridge and into the Fulton County Courthouse for court hearings. And another change that made a huge impact on security was to also discontinue escort by only one deputy. And from that day forward, all escorts take place with at least a minimum of 2 deputies.
Now, what other security related changes have been made that you can talk about without compromising your operation?
Well, certainly over the past 10 years, there's been numerous changes made, but a few that comes to mind are cameras, additional cameras that were added throughout the facilities, all of the buildings, giving the Sheriff's Office much more visibility throughout the complex. As well, cameras were added to all of the judges' chambers, giving them visibility beyond their doors. Card access was added to courtrooms' back doors for staff so that they would have easy access in the event of any emergencies. And of course, training. Yeah. Training was a big issue, so we've kind of ramped up training, and we continue to do specific training as far as active shooter and handling emergency situations.
And so, of course, all of those measures are extremely important. But what about emotionally? How have things changed since that day?
Well, emotionally for me, because I was there 10 years ago, it is always an emotional drain to think about it, but I use that to I tell the story to my staff, and most of my staff have not been with us for 10 years. So I tell them that story in hopes of instilling in them the need to be security conscious at all times, the need to pay attention to detail, and the need to never become complacent in their day-to-day duties.
Now, in terms of getting everyone out of the courthouse on that day, you clearly learned some lessons. In fact, we've seen the evacuation drills you now practice at the courthouse since then. Are there things that you do differently now?
Well, certainly. Every evacuation drill will return with things that change. It is a very fluid process. We do approximately 2 drills per year. And after each drill, we come back and we debrief, we take comments, we take complaints from other stakeholders, we look at what we do, and we make changes. But we make changes for the better. So drills are, it's a way for us to practice so that in the event of an emergency, we're able to better respond.
And it seems like you're constantly evaluating and assessing your processes for the better.
That's correct, yes.
Now, Deputy Cynthia Hall, who was the deputy who was escorting Brian Nichols on that day and suffered massive injuries after her beating, I understand she's still closely connected to the office and that you recently honored her. How's she doing?
Yes, Cynthia, she's doing well. She is definitely a part of our family. And on this past Saturday, the sheriff and many of us attended a fundraising event where she was honored. And the event was put on by an organization called Side by Side, and that organization actually helps victims of brain injuries. So that organization has been a tremendous support to Cynthia in helping her to regain a lot of her cognitive skills, and she's doing well, she's productive, she's giving back, she volunteers her time, and we love her. She's a part of our family and always will be.
And I'm certain she appreciates all of the support. She expresses that to you, I'm sure.
Yes, she does. She does.
Well, any final thoughts today, Lieutenant Colonel?
Well, for me, as the Division Commander of Court Services, it is my ultimate goal to provide a safe environment in the courthouse for everybody that come to do business within. And, we continue to upgrade security procedures, and hopefully we'll get even better than what we are now.
All right, Lieutenant Colonel Maria McKee, thank you so much for joining us to talk about this today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Now, when we come back, we'll talk about how the jail has changed its training and equipment to enhance its emergency response. Stay with us. Welcome back. So what does it take to get 2,500 inmates and over 100 staff out of the Fulton County Jail during an emergency? Well, the Sheriff's Office has a good idea after its last drill. FGTV's Felicia Church has the story.
6 o'clock time, you got a code red, zone 400.
901, 902, get emergency keys.
It was a scenario Fulton Sheriff's deputies hope will never play out in real life.
Listen up, Heath, Williams, Morrow.
But a scenario that must be practiced for when the real emergency happens at the Fulton County Jail. Getting inmates out of the building and out of harm's way while keeping all of the inmates and the deputies safe.
It is important for us to go through this evacuation training so that the civilians, the sworn staff, the visitors, guests, they would know exactly what their role is in an evacuation situation and how to protect life and the safety of those that are within the facility.
This code red mass drill reached the stage 4 level, which meant the inmates had to evacuate the premises.
Wait on medical, wait on medical.
Sheriff's deputies even simulated a new type of emergency when an inmate was injured and needed medical attention.
Medical, come this way, medical.
As this inmate was addressed, the others loaded on buses and headed to the nearby City of Atlanta Detention Center. It takes an entire community of law enforcement officials to evacuate the Fulton County Jail.
We would reach out to our local authorities, local law enforcement agencies, Atlanta Police Department, Marta Police Department, Marta Transportation, Fulton County Marshals, as well as our Fulton County Sheriff's Law Enforcement Division.
All in all, the Sheriff's Office gives this drill a good grade with a good evacuation time.
Evacuation drill was a success. The time in which the facility was evacuated was a total of 51 minutes, in which we simulated evacuating an entire floor, and we removed the prisoners from the floor of the housing unit to another jail facility.
Reporting for FGTV, I'm Felicia Church.
Thank you, Felicia. Colonel Mark Adger is the Fulton County Chief Jailer. Sir, always good to see you here in the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, we will talk about the drill in detail in just a moment, but first, as I understand it, just weeks after the drill, you experienced a real emergency with a fire inside the jail, and that drill exercise paid off indeed.
Yes, indeed, we did. We weren't expecting it, but you never do. But we had a serious fire in one of the housing units. The staff performed as trained, and we were able to evacuate all the inmates from the affected housing unit. We did not suffer any injuries either to staff or to inmates, and we were able to minimize property damage, which was significant in any event, but we were able to put out the fire and minimize any further property damage.
That's great news to hear. Now, the evacuation drill seems to be an enormous collaborative effort. How do you even plan for such an exercise?
Well, fortunately for us, we've been doing this for years, and we learn from each drill that we do. We attend specialized training for this activity. We stay in touch with our criminal justice partners that aid and assist us in conducting these drills so that we can update what we need from them. They fully know what we require in the way of services, so that when we do these drills, everyone's on the same sheet of music, and we're all working hand in glove to make sure that these events are successful.
And we saw that you even simulated a medical emergency during the drill, and that's a real possibility when you have that many people to get out of the jail.
Oh, definitely, especially when you consider that both with inmates and visitors to the jails, you have various health states of individuals who suffer from illnesses already that you may have to deal with that may be exacerbated during a mass evacuation drill, or injuries that can occur while you're evacuating. So we want to make sure that the drill and the training associated with that drill is as realistic as possible.
Now, what's the biggest obstacle when trying to evacuate a facility with such a large population?
Well, you have to understand that jails are typically, buildings, facilities that hinder egress. So you have to overcome a lot of obstacles, getting people through doors and through areas that typically are designed to keep people in the building. And then you have to overcome any conduct and behavior on the part of the inmates that might hinder the evacuation of the facility. And then you also have to rely on staff members remembering their training, fall back on their training so that they can conduct the drill, the evacuation as planned.
And a lot to keep in mind, and you move through it so seamlessly. Now, I understand you have enhanced training and your equipment since that fire. Tell us about it.
Yes, one of the things, and what we do after all events, whether it be a drill or an actual event, is that we debrief so that we understand what we did right and what we did wrong. And one of the things that we saw was that we're working with staff members who have in many cases less than 2 years experience on the job. They've never done anything like this before. So what I wanted to be able to do, and the sheriff encouraged, is that we train people as realistically as possible. And to do that, we purchased a fire simulator where we can safely simulate a fire burning in an enclosed area without using actual flames. We also incorporated a smoke generator so that we can create a smoke environment that's non-toxic but will hinder sight lines so that it's not easy to see people that need to be rescued, that you have to do a deliberate search. We also modified our protective equipment to limit the amount of vision that you get from the face mask of a breathing apparatus to create a stressful training environment so that the staff member understands what he will be feeling and thinking at the time of an actual emergency, and that he can work through those feelings and his body reactions to get the job done. And I think this new equipment will do that. It's going to add realism to the training. It's going to add something that we never had before, and that is a practical exercise that closely mimics what actually happens in a fire situation.
So really true hands-on training then?
Yes, very hands-on. I think it's going to, when they get done at the end of the day, they're going to be extremely tired.
And what's the early feedback you're getting about this type of approach?
Well, from what I've seen so far, staff are excited because, one, they've never had to do this before. It's always been a classroom type situation. And the classroom, although you learn a lot in the classroom, you really don't know how you're going to respond to a particular situation until you're actually in it. And this will give them some idea of what they'll be able to do when they're actually confronted with a fire situation.
Now, is there a local, state, or federal mandate to conduct these types of evacuation drills, or is this simply a policy of your office?
This is a policy of our office. It's a best practice policy that many jails and prisons follow, that you should have a Code Red Mass Evac plan and that you should practice that plan on at least an annual basis. We intend to do a Code Red Mass Evac at the main jail again in 2015, and we're also going to do a Code Red Mass Evac drill at our Union City facility where we house all of our female inmates.
Now, before I let you get out of here today, I noticed that you came equipped with something new. I almost missed it. Can you tell me a little bit about your body cam?
I'm glad you noticed that. The Fulton County Jail has been utilizing body cameras for the last 2.5 years. We've used several different kinds of body cameras. The one I'm wearing is called the V-View body camera. And the one good thing about the staff having these body cameras is that it modifies the behavior and conduct of the inmates that we're supervising, because like everyone knows, when they know they're being recorded, everyone's a much more polite individual.
And we've heard so much talk nationally about the need for law enforcement to wear body cams, and it seems like we're ahead of the curve on this one because you said 2 years already?
Yes, it is, and in a jail environment at that.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today. Any final thoughts you have on any of the information you shared with us today?
Yes, I'd like to extend my gratitude to the community that visit the Fulton County Jail, and anyone that has a relative or a loved one in the Fulton County Jail. I hope they realize that we take these individuals' safety extremely serious, and that we're going to look after them as well as we look after ourselves.
Well, thanks for always being so forward-thinking and for sharing so much information with us today, Colonel Adger. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome, and I appreciate you having me here.
Sure. We will be right back. Special thanks to Colonel McKee and Colonel Adger from the Fulton County Sheriff's Office. And a special thanks to you for watching. That is all of our time today. We invite you to email us to let us know what topics you'd like to see addressed on Talk Fulton. Email us at fgtv.feedback@fultoncountyga.gov. I'm Yvette Jones. We'll see you next time.